Salve mates, I hope everything is covered in Tuscan sunshine at your end. Welcome to another ranking video. This time we're diving into the lives of Roman emperors during the Principate, focusing on the overall quality of their lives. Unlike other lists and rankings, our emphasis is not on their reign or their tax policies, but on their personal life experiences, answering the question, would I trade my life for theirs? In this ranking, the ideal S-tier emperor enjoyed a long life, reaching his 70s with many children, minimal hardships, being popular among the population, and the freedom to pursue his passions, whether that meant waging wars or composing music. Conversely, emperors in the F-tier often died young or faced numerous personal tragedies, suffering poor health, being murdered, being unpopular, losing children, losing wives, or worse, having their wives cheating on them. Traits like paranoia, cowardice, and living in constant fear also drag their rankings down. Please note I'm skipping all emperors who ruled less than 2 years because their stories are the same. Things went great, then they became emperors and got killed a few months later. It's just boring to repeat. So without further ado, let's get to it. Let's rank the first Roman emperor. Augustus. Augustus' life earns him an B-tier ranking in the list of lives of Roman emperors. He lived until the age of 75 and died of natural causes, a notable achievement for any ruler of ancient Rome. Standing at an average height of 170 centimeters, he was well educated and wrote several books, reflecting his intellectual pursuits. In terms of his career, Augustus led a fulfilling life, becoming consul at just 25 years old, rising from relative obscurity to become the sole ruler of Rome. However, his life was not without challenges. Despite his long life, Augustus was sickly, frail, and nearly died multiple times. From what we know about him, he suffered from tooth decay and farsightedness in his left eye. The biggest flaw in Augustus' life wasn't health, however, but his family and Augustus' inability to have an heir who would have lived longer than he did. Instead, he faced numerous personal tragedies. He only had one child, a daughter named Julia, who got banished for her scandalous behavior. She was a whore. His nephew and successor Marcellus died during Augustus' lifetime. His grandsons Gaius and Lucius, who both intended to succeed him, also died before he did. His best friend and another potential successor, Agrippa, also didn't outlive Augustus. In the end, Augustus' successor was his stepson, Tiberius, whom he disliked. Above all that, Augustus' father died when he was only 4, and his adoptive father, Julius Caesar, was famously murdered. In summary, Augustus' life was marked by incredible achievements and personal fulfillment. He rose from obscurity to become Rome's first emperor and ruled effectively for many years. However, his constant health issues and numerous family tragedies prevent him from achieving higher ranking. Tiberius C-tier. Tiberius lived to be 77 years old, making him the oldest Roman emperor. He died of natural causes and he didn't suffer from any illnesses. He was a successful commander, earning the respect of his soldiers. So why am I ranking him a C-tier? Tiberius' life was also filled with many personal challenges and sadness. He wasn't really suited for the life in a big city. Interestingly, the only time he felt truly happy was when he banished himself to Rhodes, away from the pressures of his life in Rome. As well as Augustus, he faced numerous family tragedies. Tiberius' mother Livia, a very controlling woman, divorced his father to marry Augustus, his new stepfather, whom Tiberius disliked. Much of his life was spent in the shadow of his stepfather and as an embarrassing placeholder for the sons of Julia, his wife, whom he hated very much. Why? Because he was forced to divorce the love of his life and forbidden from seeing her again. Instead, he was made to marry Julia, who made his life miserable with her scandalous behavior. She was a whore. Tiberius' personal tragedies continued with the death of his adoptive son Germanicus and of his only son Drusus, which caused him deep grief. After Drusus' death, Tiberius moved to the island of Capri, where he became bitter and reclusive, drowning his sorrows and feeling increasingly miserable. His life was filled with hate, social anxiety, paranoia, and he was horrified by rumors, according to Tacitus. He was so scared of entering Rome that he largely stayed away from the city. In summary, Tiberius' life was a mix of military success and deep personal unhappiness. His long life and accomplishments as a commander are significant positives, but his many personal struggles, family tragedies, and eventual reclusion to Capri place him in the D tier. His life was marked by a constant battle with inner demons and a lack of true personal fulfillment. Caligula. Caligula's life is an easy F tier ranking in our list. On the one hand, for the most of his life, he could do whatever he wanted, indulging in the degeneracy of his sick mind. This unrestrained freedom allowed him to pursue his desires without consequences. However, the negatives of Caligula's life far outweighed his positives. The reason? His health. Caligula's mental state was a significant issue, and whether it was caused by epileptic psychosis or schizophrenia, his life must have been a living hell. His disease made him paranoid and caused him a great fear of thunders and loud noises, which caused him a constant distress. He was also terrified of bad weather, further contributing to his unstable and anxious existence. Caligula's reign was short and chaotic, ending when he was murdered at the age of 29. His paranoid and erratic behavior led to widespread dissatisfaction and ultimately his assassination. In summary, while Caligula enjoyed absolute freedom and indulgence, his severe mental health issues and constant fear made his life miserable. His short, troubled reign and death place him firmly in the F tier. Claudius' life earns him a C tier ranking in our list of Roman emperors. He faced many personal challenges, including suffering from cerebral palsy and losing his father when he was just 1 year old. Growing up in the shadow of his brother Germanicus, Claudius was publicly called a human monster by his mother and despised by his grandmother Livia and his sister Lucilla. Often sidelined and barely noticed, he withdrew into solitude without any hope of advancing his career. But despite these harsh circumstances, Claudius found solace in literature, art, gambling, which helped him survive many plots and murders around him. His solitary nature and intellectual pursuits allowed him to write books about Carthaginian history and the Etruscan alphabet. He made the most of his life given his awful childhood and bad health, becoming an able and efficient administrator. As emperor, however, Claudius did not call the shots. He was controlled by various individuals, including his praetorian prefect, freedmen, senators, and especially his wives. His first and third wives cuckolded him, his second wife bullied him, and a final wife, Agrippina, eventually poisoned him. In summary, Claudius turned his early despair into a passion for learning, and though he was often a puppet emperor controlled by others, his resilience and ability to adapt to the circumstances earned him a C tier ranking. Nero's life earns him a B tier ranking in our quality of life list. For 14 years, Nero indulged in his desires, caring seemingly only about himself and not much about the people around him. Nero's life was filled with some negatives, beginning with difficult childhood. The property of his family was seized by Caligula, His mother Agrippina was banished, and his father died when Nero was just 4 years old. As an adult, Nero was considered ugly, of average height, and suffered from weak eyesight. He died by suicide at the age of 31 after the rebellion of Galba and Vindex, but before that he got to spend his time chariot racing, singing, dancing, composing, and copulating. Nero may have been involved in the murders of his brother Britannicus, his mother Agrippina, and his pregnant wife, whom he killed by kicking her in the stomach, but that didn't bother him too much. His last words, "What an artist the world is losing," highlight his total delusion and self-obsession. In summary, while Nero died at the age of 31 by his own hand, he enjoyed a life of indulgence and personal pleasure, which placed him in the B tier. Before we get to the next emperor, a quick reminder: we are ranking the emperors who reigned longer than 2 years. Vespasian, S tier. Vespasian's life is the first S tier ranking in our list. Known for his jovial and cheerful nature, even though his face often looked like he was constipated, he was generally healthy and lived until the age of 69. He had a happy childhood in the imperial palace, and even as an emperor, he was not easily bothered by insults, showing his resilient and good-humored personality. Vespasian himself had a successful career, eventually becoming an emperor. What adds to his S tier ranking is that he had 2 sons, Titus and Domitian, who ensured a continuation of his legacy. His positive outlook and a good health also contributed to a fulfilling life. The only exception is that he died of dysentery, which was a painful way to go. Vespasian's life posed only minor challenges. During Nero's reign, for example, he experienced a fear of death when he fell asleep during one of Nero's recitals, a dangerous situation given Nero's temperament. In summary, Vespasian's life was marked by good health and a cheerful disposition and a successful career. His ability to stay positive and his happy childhood contribute to his S tier ranking, despite a few negatives he faced. Titus' life earns him an A tier ranking. As the favorite son of his father, Vespasian, Titus enjoyed a privileged and supportive childhood. He was a successful commander and a popular emperor, known for his generosity and fairness. Educated and talented, Titus spoke both Latin and Greek, possessed strong oratory skills, and was also a singer and musician. Titus' personal achievements were significant. He was also a successful commander who destroyed a Jewish rebellion in Judea. His life had some challenges, however. For example, he had no sons, only one daughter, which impacted his legacy. Also, his short reign was marred by too many disasters, including the eruption of Mount Vesuvius, a major fire in Rome, and a plague. Those events caused great suffering and difficulty during his very short rule. Titus died at the age of 41, cutting short and promising reign. Titus' life was filled with personal and professional successes, but his early death and lack of male successors prevent him from achieving the top ranking. Domitian's life earns him a D tier ranking. He lived until the age of 44, he was tall and was a skillful administrator. His governance was generally peaceful, providing some stability to the empire. However, Domitian's life was overshadowed by numerous negatives. He lived his whole life in the shadow of his brother Titus, who was far more successful and popular figure. During his father's rule, unlike Titus, Domitian's role was often seen as mostly ceremonial, further diminishing his personal significance. Domitian was even cuckolded by his brother, which added to his jealousy. Domitian was paranoid, distrustful, and widely hated by those around him, including his own wife, who conspired to murder him. His jealousy of his brother, coupled with rumors he had him killed, along with his unsuccessful military expeditions against the Dacians and Caledonians, contributed to his negative reputation. Domitian also had no children and suffered from baldness, and also allegedly had ugly toes. His life ended brutally when he was murdered by being violently stabbed to death by a servant. So in summary, while Domitian had some administrative skills and relatively peaceful reign, his troubled personal life, coupled with his paranoia and unpopularity, place him in the D tier. Trajan, S tier. Trajan's life is the second S tier ranking in our list. Maybe a little unfair one because we know relatively little about his personal life. Trajan allegedly enjoyed a happy marriage with Plotina despite his interest in males. He was known for being just, hardworking, modest, generous, qualities that make him popular among the people. Trajan's reign was marked by his successes as a commander and the expansion of the Roman Empire. He died at the age of 63 from natural causes, a peaceful end for any Roman emperor, and the only notable negative in Trajan's life is that he had no children. Hadrian's life earns him a B tier ranking in our list. Hadrian was highly educated and successfully commanded legions during the Dacian campaign. As emperor, he traveled extensively, which allowed him to experience and enjoy different parts of the empire. During his travels, he found time for leisure activities like climbing Mount Etna and swimming in the Nile. He was popular among the people, known for his charitable nature, and he even gave property to poor senators. Hadrian was also known for his modesty and lived until the age of 62. But Hadrian's life surprisingly had its share of difficulties. Throughout his lifetime, he likely had a strained relationship with his wife, possibly due to his attraction to men. The death of his lover Antoninus in Egypt profoundly affected him, driving him into depression and making him suicidal. By the end of his life, Hadrian became paranoid, acted like a tyrant, and was hated by the people around him. Also added to his lower ranking is the fact that he had no children. Antoninus, A tier. Antoninus' life earns him an A tier ranking. He was a man of a great appearance, gifted, noble, generous, hardworking, pious, and modest. Despite living a life of wealth, he remained temperate and self-restrained. His virtues made him very popular among the people, and his reign was marked by peace and prosperity. Antoninus lived a long life for his time, dying at the age of 70 after eating too much of an Alpine cheese, which we all know this is the best way to go. So what prevents him from reaching the S tier? The fact that he lost the love of his life, his wife, during his lifetime, which caused him great grief. But above all that, all 4 of his children died before him. Death of your children must have been a horrible experience, and it prevents him from reaching the S tier. Antoninus' life was a mix of great public success and profound personal grief. Marcus Aurelius, D tier. Marcus Aurelius, often praised as the philosopher emperor, lands in the D tier ranking, and that is due to his challenging personal life. His health was poor, so poor in fact that he damaged it by intense philosophy studies. Sickly and frail, he used mandragora excessively, probably being high all the time. His personal life was a mess. His wife, Faustina, cheated on him, allegedly multiple times with sailors, actors, and even gladiators. She even supported an usurper Cassius against Marcus. Despite this, Marcus always found a way to forgive her. They had 13 kids, but given Faustina's adultery, it's uncertain how many were really his. However, only 5 of those kids reached adulthood, and out of the 6 sons they had together, only 1 survived Marcus, Commodus. The emperor may have loved Commodus, but he doubted his son, especially since Commodus acted like a gladiator and his mother had affairs with gladiators. What prevents Marcus from sinking even lower is that he was diligent, dutiful, tolerant, and generous. He did what was necessary for the state, despite hating the military environment. He led armies into battles because he loved the state more than himself. Also, his philosophy was to cope with everything destined by fate. Eventually, Marcus Aurelius died at 58, sacrificing himself and his life for the state. The ranking of quality of lives of Roman emperors is the only list where Lucius Verus can rank higher than his co-emperor Marcus Aurelius, because Verus earns an 80 ranking in our list, thanks to his pleasant yet carefree lifestyle. Dying at 38 from the plague, Lucius enjoyed his time more than most. Instead of worrying about boring administrative duties, he was more interested in the charms of women and leisurely activities. Lucius was notoriously lazy. It took him, for example, 9 months to travel from Rome to Antioch in Syria, where he was supposed to defend the state against the Parthians. He loved luxury and leisure, allegedly spending 6 million sesterces on one single feast. While he enjoyed his life, much of the actual ruling was handled by his co-emperor Marcus Aurelius. Despite his carefree nature, Lucius was intelligent and had a love for rhetoric and poetry. What prevents him from ranking higher is the fact that he had 3 children who all died in infancy. This and dying at the age of 38 added a touch of sadness to his otherwise pleasurable life, placing him in the A category. Commodus, C tier. The only son of Marcus Aurelius, Commodus lands in the C tier ranking in quality of lives list. Commodus spent most of his life doing what he loved, killing animals and participating in public spectacles, and especially killing animals. However, his reign was filled with negatives. Commodus was clueless about ruling and scheming, leading to widespread betrayal by those around him. At many points during his reign, his sister, his wife, his slaves, and even his praetorian prefect all plotted against him, causing him to become extremely paranoid. Like Emperor Tiberius, he rejected everyone around him, isolating himself and gradually going crazy by the end of his reign. Also, during his rule, a plague broke out, further complicating his already troubled leadership. Commodus' erratic behavior and poor decisions eventually led to his assassination at the age of 31. Depending on who you are and what set of values you have, you might put his death into positive category, but on my side I think that being strangled by a wrestler in a bath definitely lowers overall life quality. So in summary, Commodus' life had moments of personal enjoyment and bravery. Must have been when he stood against animals and gladiators in Colosseum. But an incompetence, paranoia, and the betrayals he faced make his life worthy of a C tier ranking. Septimius Severus, S tier. The one and only Septimius Severus lands easily in S tier ranking in our list. Born into a modest family in Leptis Magna, he grew up with a hard and strict life that prepared him for the challenges ahead. According to Hadrian, he was very good at handling stress, which helped him a lot during his career. He spoke also fluently Latin and Punic and studied Greek literature. Severus rose through the ranks of the Roman military and administration, showing his great potential and ruthless nature. During the year of the 5 emperors, he quickly eliminated his rivals, securing his position as the new emperor of Rome. During his reign, Severus led successfully military campaigns and destroyed everyone in his way. He lived to the age of 65, dying of natural causes, which was quite impressive for the time, and before he died he knew, or at least he thought he knew, he left the empire in the hands of his sons, Caracalla and Geta. Septimius Severus lived a life full of achievements and strategic successes. His ability to endure and thrive in the harsh world of Roman politics, along with his long life and successful military campaigns, places him in the best S tier. Caracalla B tier. Caracalla's life earns him a B tier ranking in our list of Roman emperors. Like his father Septimius Severus, Caracalla grew up accustomed to a hard and strict life. He was also good at handling stress, and given his youth, he managed to balance his extravagant lifestyle with his duties as emperor. Among the positives, we can include the fact that Caracalla was very well educated, even though he didn't like education much and despised those who did. Despite his lavish spending and enjoyment of luxuries, he did not neglect his responsibilities as emperor. However, Caracalla's life had two significant downsides. The first one, he died young, at the age of 29, by the hands of an assassin while taking a piss. The second, he was a short stature. Caracalla enjoyed his time as a young prince and then as a sole emperor, but his short stature and early death prevent him from ranking higher than B tier. Elagabalus, D tier. The most despicable emperor of the Roman Empire, Elagabalus earns a D tier ranking in our list. The only positive aspect of his life that prevents him even sinking lower is that he was doing whatever he pleased during his 4-year reign, while desecrating Rome with his degeneracy. He indulged in scandalous activities such as working in a brothel and soliciting himself to passerby, wearing female clothes, bathed in gold dust, and marrying both men and Vestal virgins. And he even circumcised himself. These horrific actions shocked and angered the Roman people, earning him a notorious reputation. Despite having the freedom to live as he wished, Elagabalus' life was marred by significant negatives. He became the emperor at the age of 14, and he was heavily dependent on his mother, who wielded considerable influence over him. He was universally hated and despised by almost everyone, living in a state of constant fear and paranoia. He reversed his day and night regime, staying awake all night and sleeping during the day, further distancing him from other normal human beings. Elagabalus was also suicidal and frequently in conflict with everyone around him. His erratic behavior and constant clashes with the Roman elite only deepened his unpopularity and his mental state. His reign ended abruptly when he was assassinated at the age of 18. In summary, Elagabalus lived his life as he saw fit, but it was filled with excesses and scandals, and as well with fear, hatred, and conflict. His short reign and degenerate lifestyle place him in the D tier. Severus Alexander's life earns him, unfortunately, an F tier ranking in our list of Roman emperors. As his predecessor, he became emperor when he was 14, and he wasn't exactly the one calling the shots. A total mama's boy, he was heavily influenced by his mother and grandmother. They even controlled the emperor's marriage, and when his wife gained too much influence over him, the mother forced Alexander to divorce his wife and even murder her father. Despite his virtues and moderation, his life was anything but smooth. Severus Alexander was seen as coward, infamously refusing to aid his soldiers in Persia with his army, which made him very unpopular among the troops. He had no children, which didn't help his legacy as well, and his overall ranking too. His demise was exceptionally cruel. When his soldiers elected the usurper Maximinus, Severus Alexander cried and begged them not to abandon him. In a pitiful scene, he cried in his mother's lap in a war tent, blaming her for everything as they awaited their inevitable end. He died at the young age of 26, having failed to win the respect or loyalty of his soldiers. In summary, Severus Alexander's life was controlled by his mother, marked by cowardice, and ended in tears and betrayal. His virtues didn't save him from his tragic fate, placing him in the worst F tier. Now, before we get to the next emperor, a quick side note: we are entering a very grey and shady era where we have a very little information about those emperors. Maximinus Thrax S tier. Maximinus Thrax's life definitely earns him an S tier ranking in our list of Roman emperors. He lived life doing what he loved most, killing enemies in the name of Rome. His great health allowed him to personally fight in battles well into his 60s, which is pretty impressive. According to unreliable Historia Augusta, he had quite a diet, never touching vegetables but devouring 13 kilograms of meat and drinking 20 liters of wine daily. To his overall quality of life contributes that he was above 2 meters tall, a true giant of his time. After becoming emperor, he didn't bother himself with the fundamentals of ruling by listening to old fart senators. Instead, he dissolved the imperial court. He continued living as a soldier emperor, doing what he pleased, mostly killing Germans. His life could be summed up in 3 words: simple, efficient, glorious. Sure, he was murdered alongside with his son, but this tragedy on his final day did not overshadow the thrilling and exciting life he led. Maximinus Thrax lived large and fierce, making him a standout in our ranking. Despite his violent end, his life's sheer excitement and glory place him firmly in the S tier. Gordian III's life sadly lands him in the F tier in our quality of life list. Burdened with the emperorship at only 13, his reign was plagued with obscurity. By 19, he met a tragic end, murdered before he even had a chance to truly grow up. His short life was marked by earthquakes and wars with Persia, and despite holding the title of emperor, he wielded no real power. There is little else known about him, making his life seem even more tragic and empty. Philippus Arabs D tier. Philippus Arabs gets a D tier ranking in our list of Roman emperors. His reign was clouded by nasty rumors that he, as a Praetorian prefect, had his predecessor and then the young Emperor Gordian III murdered to climb to power. These dishonorable acts made him quite unpopular among the people. Once he became emperor, Philip quickly showed his cowardly nature. He paid the Persians a large sum of money and abandoned Roman lands to sue for peace, a move seen as weak and disgraceful. His single military success was defeating the Carpi tribe, but his reign was mostly plagued by usurpers and Germanic invasions. Overwhelmed by the constant turmoil, Philip even offered to resign, but the Senate convinced him to stay. In a twist of bitter irony, Senator Decius, who persuaded him to continue reigning, was later proclaimed emperor by Roman troops and then killed Philip in the battle, along with Philip's 12-year-old son. Philip's life was marked by dishonor, cowardice, and a violent end. Only thanks to dying at the age of 45, alongside with the leading the celebrations of the 1000th birthday of Rome, he didn't get an F. Trebonianus Gallus' life earns him an F tier ranking. His life is almost a copy and paste of his predecessor Philippus Arabs. From the start of his reign, he was plagued by rumors that he had a hand in the downfall of his predecessor Decius and the death of Decius' son Hostilianus. The situation worsened when the third largest city in the empire, Antioch, was sacked by the Persians during his reign, highlighting his inability to protect the empire. His reign ended in betrayal and violence when both Gallus and his son Volusian were murdered by their own soldiers, who chose to kill them rather than fight a battle against a usurper in their names. Valerian's life earns him a D tier ranking in our list. He had 2 sons, Gallienus and Licinius Valerian, and 3 grandsons, which might have been a source of personal joy amidst the chaos. Reigning for 8 years during the 3rd century crisis was an achievement, but that's where Valerian's good fortune seemed to end. Valerian's reign was marked by relentless bad luck. Each attempt to defend the empire from the Persians was prevented by devastating plagues that ravaged his army. Under his watch, Antioch was plundered again, and the Roman East was sacked by Goths. It became clear that the challenges were beyond his capabilities, even though he reigned over the richer and more powerful Roman East, while leaving the West to his son. Despite his honesty and sense of justice, Valerian proved to be incapable of handling the empire's immense troubles. The collapse of monetary politics and the further outbreak of a plague further tainted his reign. The year 260 was a disastrous low point, both for Valerian and the Roman Empire. Valerian was captured by Shapur I, the Persian king, and spent the remainder of his life in humiliating captivity, serving as a footstool for the king and then dying by being flayed alive. His death in captivity under such degrading conditions, combined with the fact that his son co-emperor Gallienus refused to pay ransom for his release, highlighted the tragic end of his unfortunate reign. Despite his children and grandchildren, his honesty and good intentions, and dying in his 60s, Valerian's inability to effectively manage the empire's crisis and his humiliating end in captivity place him firmly in the D tier. His reign is more remembered for its failures and miseries than for any significant achievements. Gallienus, F tier. Gallienus' life is easily an F tier. Finding positives in Gallienus' life is a challenge. His father Valerian made him emperor of the West, a significantly tougher role compared to ruling in the East, even though his father even managed to screw up there royally. While the East was besieged by Persians and Goths, the West was plagued by relentless Germanic barbarian invasions, and Gallienus suddenly ruled alone. Gallienus faced an overwhelming number of usurpers, so many that they have their own Wikipedia page. The constant threat from within and outside the empire led numerous provinces to declare independence under his rule. Overwhelmed by this unceasing crisis, Gallienus seemed to resign himself to his fate, retreating into solace during his later years. His personal life was equally tragic. What differs Gallienus' ranking from his father is that he saw his entire family decimated. His father, Emperor Valerian, died in Persian captivity. His brothers Valerian II and Salonius were murdered by their own soldiers during his reign. His wife Cornelia was killed alongside him in a coup. Roman historians further tarnished his reputation, labeling him a coward and a weakling. Eventually, Gallienus met a violent end at the age of 50, assassinated by those who should have been his allies. Aurelian and Probus, A tier. Aurelian and Probus are both ranked A tier. Given the very little that we know, they shared similar life stories, so much that it's fitting to rank them together in this video. Both emperors came from humble beginnings in Illyria and rose through the ranks to become powerful leaders of Rome. Positives include both Aurelian and Probus were remarkable commanders. Aurelian, with Probus' help, successfully defeated the breakaway states of Palmyra and the Gallic Empire. Their leadership was crucial in fending off numerous barbarian invasions. Their rise from humble origins to the peak of the power is an inspiring tale of ambition and competence. Negatives are that despite their military successes, both Aurelian and Probus were ultimately betrayed and murdered by their own soldiers. The lack of detailed sources leaves much of their personal lives in the shadows, including the potential existence and fate of their alleged children. In summary, both men were in their late 50s or 60s when they met their ends, suggesting they enjoyed a relatively long and active life, especially for the turbulent 3rd century. So mates, this is the end of the video, the ranking of the quality of lives of the Roman emperors during the Principate. Let me know which emperor inspired you the most. Who would you like to trade your life with? Let me know in the comments. Quick side note, to speed up the pace of video making, I plan on doing these face-up videos often. So if you don't mind looking at my face, you're in luck. If you do, well, check out my older videos. Okay, that's it. Vale, God bless you, and God bless the Roman Empire.